So this is a video which is going to take you through the first few lines of the Aeneid set text for IB. It's going to just focus on the translation so that you can see how the Latin fits together. I'm not going to talk about the literary qualities of the text or its historical context or anything else like that, because that's what we're going to do in class. So we start. Inter ea, meanwhile. Literally, inter ea means among these things, during these things. So therefore it means meanwhile. Then we have to go to two other words in the sentence which are not next to each other. And this is something that you have to get used to in translating Latin poetry. That often you have words which go together, but they're not next to each other in the line. So bellator and turnus are both nominative singular. They're going together, but they're not next to each other in the sentence. So meanwhile, the warrior, bellator, turnus, that's how we start. He is our subject, the warrior turnus, bellator, turnus. Sorry, bellator, turnus. Now, bellator is linked to the word bellum that you already know, right? Bellum is a war, and so bellator is someone who fights in a war, a warrior. So meanwhile, the warrior turnus, and we're told that he is in extremo aequore. He is at the edge. Extremo is the extreme part, the edge of the aequore. That means the plain, right? The stretch of sort of flat ground in which they're fighting their battle. Okay, so Turnus is in extremo aequore, on the edge of the plain. And you can tell that these words go together because in takes ablative, unless it means into, and here you can see extremo and aequore are both ablative singular. So meanwhile, the warrior Turnus at the edge of the plain, and then we need the main verb, and that's here, sequitur. Now this verb looks passive, that tur ending is a passive ending, but sequor is a deponent verb, which means that it's active in, passive in form, but active in meaning. So sequor means to follow, so Turnus follows paukos palantis. That means a few stragglers. Okay, now paukos we've already met. It's accusative because it's the object of sequitur. Palantis is a bit more difficult. If this was a work of prose, in other words, if this was not a poem, it would appear as palantes, as you can see here. So you might want to write an ES, a long E and then an S, just above the ending IS, so that you know this really would be palantes. So this is a participle which is accusative, palantes, agreeing with paukos. But because this is poetry, the ES is replaced with an IS. So he follows a few palantes. It means people who are wandering around, not catching up. So they're stragglers. Okay, and Turnus is jam segnior. He is now slower. Okay, segnis means slow, and this is the comparative version, slower. And, that's atque, which means and or also. He is now, jam, minus atque minus, less and less. Happy, that's lightus. In the successu, right, this is ablative, he's happy in the progress, or rather he's less and less happy in the progress of his horses. Okay, now successus is a word that gives us our English word success, but originally in Latin it just meant advancement or progress, and that's how I've translated it here. So he was less and less happy in the advance of his horses, and equorum here is genitive plural of his horses. Okay, we now have a new subject in this sentence, and the subject is aura. And this is a first declension, feminine noun, meaning a breeze. Okay, a breeze. So what did the aura do? The aura attulit illi. Okay, now attulit is the perfect of ad ferro. So it means the breeze brought to, and it brought to illi, right? So that's the dative singular of the pronoun ille, which is a word that means him, referring back to Turnus. So the breeze brought to him illi. Now we need an object. What did the breeze bring to him? It brought to him hunc clamorem. Those are both accusative. Hunc meaning this, clamorem meaning shout. And in fact, it's not just a shout, it's a shout that is commixtum, which means mixed up with something. Okay, so the breeze brought to him this shout mixed with, and here's our ablative that tells us what it was mixed with. It was mixed with caecis terroribus, with unknown terrors. So caecis means unknown, terroribus, of course, means terrors. Okay. And there's another thing here. We get a new subject. So the word and is que, which is added onto the end of arectas. So and then we have a new subject, which is sonus. And a sonus means a sound. Right? That gives us words in English like sonic, supersonic, and that kind of thing, sonar. So a sound of the confusi urbis. Okay, so these are both, the word confusi and urbis, these are both feminine genitive singular. They go together. The sound of the confused city and its inlaitabile murmur, its joyless murmur, right? Inlaitabile, this comes from laitus, meaning happy. Laitabile is something that would make you happy. Inlaitabile means that it won't make you happy, so it's a joyless murmur. Okay, so the sound of the confused city and a joyless murmur, impullit, that means reached his arectas auris. Okay, so impullit means literally drove into, so went into his auris. Now this is another example of a word where in Latin prose, in Latin writing that's not poetry, you would see aures. Okay, so it's feminine accusative plural aures, just like arectas is also feminine accusative plural. It's just that this is poetry, so we have auris. Okay, so these things reached his arectas auris. Now the auris are his ears. Okay, like if in music, if you do an oral exercise, that's about how well you can hear parts of the music. And then arectas is a participle. Okay, it comes from the verb arrigo, which means to make something upright. So arectas means sort of pricked up, right? His ears are pricked up so that he can hear. Right? Okay, and that's the end of that sentence. And then we have some speech from Turnus, and it begins with ei mihi, which is just an expression of anger and sadness, right? It just means, I've translated it, me. You know, it's basically just saying, this is terrible. Then we have quid tanto turbantur moenia luctu. So we have an ablative here. By what great grief? Quid tanto luctu. Okay, tanto means so great. Luctu is grief or a sorrow or a sadness. And then quid means what. So by what great grief are the walls, the moenia, are the walls of the city, being turbantur. Okay, this is a a passive, okay, turbantur, and turbo, turbare means to disturb, to throw into confusion. Okay, so by what great grief are the walls being disturbed? Or, this is just the two letters VE at the end of quis. Okay, so just like que at the end of a word means and, there at the end of a word means or. Okay, so or, what cry, quis clamor, what cry, and this is the subject, okay, quis and clamor are nominative, what cry, tantus, so great, so what great cry, rushes, that's the verb ruit, what great cry rushes from, that's ab, plus ablative, the urbe, from the city, and the city is described as diversa, which in this context means far off, or distant, or far away. So, or what so great a cry rushes from the distant city. And then you have a phrase here, sic ait, which is very common in Virgil. It means thus he speaks, or so he speaks. Sic means thus or in this way, and ait means he speaks. So he speaks, thus he speaks. And, here we have que, he, this is Turnus, he stops. Okay, that's the main verb. He subsistet. That means that he stops. Okay, so he stops out of his mind. Mains. Okay, mains is your mind, and if you are mains, you are out of your mind. You're not in your mind. In the same way that if you're a theist, you believe in God. If you're an atheist, you don't. It's the same here. Mains is mind. Mains means not in your right mind. And that's what I've translated as frantic. Okay? So he speaks, and he stops out of his mind, frantic. And then we have an ablative absolute, adductis habenis. Literally, with the reins having been pulled in. Okay, so the habena is a rein, the habenis are the reins that you use to control a horse. And then adductis is the participle, the perfect passive participle from adduco, as I put here. Okay, from adduco. And adduco means to lead something towards yourself. So the idea is that he has led the reins towards himself. He's pulling in the reins. Okay, so one more time. So he speaks, and with the reins having been pulled in, habenis adductis, he stops, subsistet, mains, frantic. Okay, and then you can see the translation there. And then we'll just do a few more lines here. Atque huic, that's where we begin. We'll go up to possint here. So we start with atque, meaning and. Then we have huic. Now this is the dative singular of hic, haec, hoc. So it means to this man, i.e. Turnus. So to him, his sister, his soror. Now this sentence is a bit difficult. The main verb is all the way here. So the basic structure of this sentence is, and his sister objects to him, occurrit huic, with these words. That's the basic structure of the sentence. But there are also some other details that Virgil puts in. So let's go through it bit by bit. Atque means and, huic means to him. Then the subject is soror, his sister. And then ut means as, and that's going to then lead to regebat, but as, having transformed, conversa is a participle, it's a perfect participle, having turned into the appearance, in faciam, into the appearance of metiscus, metiski is the genitive of metiscus, into the appearance of metiscus, the auriga, right? An auriga is a charioteer. Okay, so, and to him, his sister, having turned into the appearance of his charioteer metiscus, when, or as, that's ut, she was regebat, literally ruling, but we might say guiding, his curum, his chariot, et equos, and his horses, and the reins, et lora. This, as you can see here, is the plural of lorum. Okay, a lorum is a strip of leather, so the lora are the reins. So his sister has transformed into the appearance of Metiscus the charioteer, and she's guiding the chariot and the horses and the reins, and she objects to him, to Turnus, with such words, with these words. Okay, so that's a difficult sentence there, but if you go over it a couple of times, you'll see hopefully how it fits together. And then we have our second speech of the passage, this time not from Turnus, but from his sister, and it begins here. And she addresses him turne. Now it ends in an E because that's the vocative of turnus. So she addresses him, Turnus. And then she says, sequamur. Okay, now that is a subjunctive actually. It's what we call a jussive subjunctive, and it means let us do this. Okay, this is like andiamo in Italian, let's go, for example. So, sequamur, let's follow the Troiugenas. This literally means the descendants of Troy, the people born from Troy. Let's follow, sequamur, the Trojans, basically, Troiugenas. Hark. Now, hark is ablative singular feminine, and Virgil has kind of missed out the word via. So let's follow the Trojans by this way. Hark via, right? Let's follow them by this route, not some other route, but by this route. Hark. And then you have to imagine the word via, or a word like that. Let's follow the Trojans by this way. And then she explains which way she's talking about. The way on which our prima victoria, our first victory, opened, pandit, a path, a via. In other words, let's follow the route which our earlier victory has made possible, right? So they had some success earlier in the battle, and that cleared a route to get to the Trojans, and she's saying, let's use that route. Okay, so Turnus, let's follow the Trojans by this way, the way by which our first victory opened a path. Okay, Troiugenas, by the way, I've translated sons of Troy, but the meaning is basically Trojans. And then she says, sunt alii. Now, sunt here doesn't just mean they are, it means there are. In other words, we have other people. So there are others. Sunt alii. There are other people who can, okay, possint means who are able. There are others who are able to defend, defendere, their tecta, okay, that means their houses, by hand, manu, okay, that's the ablative singular of manus, meaning a hand. So literally, there are others who can defend their houses by hand. Okay, now, here, there are different ways you can translate possint. You could say who are able, or you could just say there are others to do this. Okay, now it's a subjunctive, and you could say this is a kind of purpose clause, right? There are others in order to do this thing. Another way of seeing it is as what's called a generic subjunctive, right? There are others who are the kind of people who can do this. Okay, so there are a couple of reasons why this might be in the subjunctive, but the fact is that it is. So there are others who can defend, or there are others to defend, houses, their houses, by hand or with their hands, manu. Okay, so we'll stop there. I think that'll be enough to keep us going for the first lesson.